Arsenal are spending big again this summer, but who is going to pay the price? Let us be honest with each other for a second. You have been following Arsenal for long enough to know that the excitement of a new signing can quickly turn into a very complicated situation for someone else at the club. Every time Mikel Arteta brings in a big name, there is always a player somewhere in that dressing room who quietly starts to wonder what their future looks like. And right now, as we head towards another summer transfer window, that feeling is louder than ever before. Because Arsenal are not just looking to bring in one player, they are looking at multiple targets. Big names, expensive names, names that would make any rival club nervous. And while that is thrilling for fans who want to see the Gunners finally win the Premier League and go deep in the Champions League, it raises a very real question that not enough people are talking about. When does the squad become too crowded for its own good? That is what we are going to dig into today. We are going to talk about the transfer targets, the players who are already being squeezed out, and what all of this means for the future of Arsenal as a club. Grab a cup of tea, settle in, and let us get into it. So who are Arsenal actually looking at this summer? The biggest name in the conversation right now is Julian Alvarez. The Argentine striker currently plays for Atletico Madrid, and he has been absolutely electric since leaving Manchester City. He is quick, clever, works incredibly hard, and he has already shown in the Champions League this season that he can perform at the very highest level. Football London understands that Arsenal are genuinely interested in bringing Alvarez to the Emirates. That is not just speculation or agent talk. The Gunners are reportedly well positioned to get a deal done if the opportunity presents itself. But here is the catch. Alvarez still has 4 years left on his contract at Atletico. Diego Simeone, the Atletico manager, is clearly not going to let him walk out of the door without a massive fight. And Alvarez himself, when asked about his future last month, said he is happy in Madrid, but did not completely shut the door on a move. That kind of answer from a player always keeps the rumours going. And with Arsenal being mentioned as genuinely interested, it is going to be one of the biggest transfer stories of the summer. But what would a deal actually cost? We are talking about a serious amount of money here. Think in the region of what Arsenal paid for Victor Gyökeres last summer, which was £64 million, and then add a significant amount on top of that. Alvarez is established, proven at the elite level, and Atletico know exactly what they have. This is not going to be a bargain. So what happens if the Alvarez deal falls through or simply becomes too expensive? Well, this is where it gets really interesting. Enter Christian Kofane. Who is Christian Kofane, and why should Arsenal fans care? If you have not heard of Christian Kofane yet, you are about to. The 19-year-old striker plays for Bayer Leverkusen in Germany, and according to his agent Eric De Polo, Arsenal have already made contact and the interest is completely genuine. Kofane is Cameroonian, which is actually one of the reasons his agent believes Arsenal could be in pole position to sign him. William Saliba, who has become one of the most important players at Arsenal, is originally from Cameroon. The thinking is that having a fellow Cameroonian already at the club could help Kofane feel at home and make that transition easier. But forget the nationality link for a second and just look at what Kofane has done on the pitch this season. He has played 39 games across all competitions for Leverkusen. He has scored 7 goals and provided 8 assists. He has been involved in their run to the DFB Cup semi-finals. He has also played in the Champions League, including both legs against Arsenal in the last 16. Yes, that is right. Arsenal saw him up close and personal this season. Arteta watched him play against his own team, and according to his agent, the manager liked what he saw very much. His agent was very direct when speaking about Kofane. He described him as the best under-21 striker in Europe right now, and the most complete one in that age group. He talked about his speed, his technique, his ability to defend from the front, and his strength in the air. He said it is very rare to find all of those attributes in one player at 19 years old. And then he dropped the price tag, €100 million, which works out at around £87 million. Now, before you spit your tea out, let us put that in some context. If Kofane truly is the next elite striker and Arsenal are signing him at 19, that price could look like a bargain in 5 years' time. Think about how the market works now. Players like Gyökeres, who was already in his mid-20s when Arsenal signed him, went for £64 million. A teenager with his profile, with that many clubs already circling, is always going to command a premium. His agent also mentioned that Chelsea, Newcastle, Everton, Brentford, Barcelona and Bayern Munich are all in the race. That is an enormous amount of competition for a teenager from Leverkusen. But here is what stands out. His agent specifically said that Arsenal are in pole position. The fact that Kofane speaks Spanish and can therefore communicate directly with Arteta is mentioned as a genuine advantage. The fact that there is already contact between his representatives and the club tells you this is not just noise. So Arsenal have a clear plan here. Alvarez is the dream. Kofane is the backup. Both are expensive. Both would be serious statements of intent. But here is where we need to stop and ask ourselves a really important question. Does Arsenal actually need another striker? Think about this for a moment. Arsenal signed Victor Gyökeres last summer for £64 million. He is their number one striker. He was brought in to be the main man, the goal scorer, the finisher that this team had been missing for years. Is he not doing that job? Is there a genuine problem with the striker position at Arsenal right now that needs fixing? That is a fair question, and the honest answer is that Arteta clearly believes in always strengthening, always pushing forward, never standing still. He does not wait until something is broken to fix it. He builds before the cracks appear. But signing another striker when you already have Gyökeres and you already have Gabriel Jesus and you have other forward options across the squad starts to create a very real problem. Because when you add bodies to the attack, something has to give somewhere else. And that leads us to the real story here, the one that does not get talked about enough. The young players being left behind. Let us talk about Ethan Nwaneri. If you were watching Arsenal closely last season, you will remember the excitement around this kid. Joe Cole compared him to Lionel Messi. That is not a small thing to say about a teenager. Nwaneri looked electric whenever he got on the pitch. He was quick, creative, fearless, and he clearly had something special. He signed a new long-term deal at Arsenal in the summer. That was supposed to be a sign that the club believed in him and had a plan for his development. Then the season started. Arsenal brought in Noni Madueke and Eberechi Eze alongside Gyökeres. 3 massive signings, all of them quality, all of them ready to start. And Nwaneri, he started 0 Premier League games, 0. Not reduced minutes, not used as a substitute here and there. 0 starts in the league. By January, he had to leave on loan to Marseille just to get some game time. Now ask yourself this, how does that feel for a young player who just signed a new deal at his boyhood club? How does it feel to know that no matter how well you train, no matter how much you improve, there are 4 or 5 players ahead of you who are all better than most players in Europe? It is a brutal situation and Nwaneri is not alone in it. What about Miles Lewis-Skelly? Remember the hype around Miles Lewis-Skelly? This time last year, people were saying he could go to the World Cup with England. That tells you how good he looked. A teenager playing at fullback for Arsenal with absolutely no fear. He signed a new deal at the club as well. This season he has started just 1 league game. 1. Meanwhile, Piero Hincapié, who was signed on loan from Bayer Leverkusen last summer with an option to buy, has played 17 league games. Arteta is so happy with Hincapié that he basically confirmed plans to make the deal permanent when asked about it by reporters. The fee to do that is reported to be around £45 million. So the picture for Lewis-Skelly is pretty clear right now. He is third choice at left back behind someone the club is about to spend £45 million to keep permanently. When is he going to play? And then there is Max Dalman, 16 years old, already being described as a prodigy. Gabriel Jesus himself has spoken about him. But if you look at where the competition is in this Arsenal squad, and then look at where it could be if Arsenal add Kvaratskhelia or Kofane or Alvarez in the summer, where does Dalman fit in? If he wants to play as a number 10, Martin Odegaard used to be the undisputed starter there. Now Eze is a genuine option in that role. So is Havertz. 3 players, 1 position. If Dalman wants to play on the wing, the competition is even more crowded. And it is only going to get worse. The Kvaratskhelia situation. Yes, Arsenal have also been linked with Ivica Kvaratskhelia from PSG, the Georgian winger who lit up Syria with Napoli and helped them win their first title in decades before moving to Paris. Reports have suggested that Kvaratskhelia is open to a move. Arsenal are apparently keen. This would be another enormous signing, another statement, another player who would go straight into the starting 11. But if Kvaratskhelia comes in, who makes way? You already have Bukayo Saka on one side, you have Madueke, Eze, Martinelli. There are only so many positions available. Something always has to shift when a new star arrives. And the people who shift are almost always the younger players or the ones who are not quite established enough to push back. Is Arsenal turning into the next Manchester City? This is not meant as an insult. Manchester City under Pep Guardiola built one of the greatest squads in football history. They dominated English football for years. They won everything, but they also lost Cole Palmer, Morgan Rogers, Liam Delap, and Jadon Sancho. 4 players who left because they simply could not get game time. Some of those players have gone on to have brilliant careers elsewhere. Palmer in particular has been one of the best players in the Premier League since leaving City. City could not keep them all, and they knew that some of those departures would hurt. But when your squad is that deep and that talented, you cannot give minutes to everyone. So the younger players, the ones who are not quite ready to force their way into the team every week, end up having to look for opportunities elsewhere. Arsenal are heading in the same direction. Arteta has built a squad so deep and so talented that there genuinely are not enough minutes to go around for everyone. That is a remarkable achievement when you think about where this club was 5 or 6 years ago. But it also creates a human cost that is easy to forget when you are celebrating big signings. Young players who have dedicated their lives to Arsenal, who have come through the academy, who sign new contracts believing in the project, are finding themselves pushed to the side, not because they are not good enough, but because the players ahead of them are better right now. That is cold. But that is professional football. Can Arsenal afford both Alvarez and Kofane? Let us be realistic here for a second. These are not cheap signings. Alvarez would cost well over £80 million if Atletico agreed to sell at all. Kofane has been valued at around £87 million. Hincapie is going to cost £45 million to make permanent. That is potentially over £200 million in one summer if Arsenal pursued all of those deals. Even for a club with Arsenal's financial backing, that is an enormous amount of money to spend in a single window. This is why the Kofane conversation makes more sense as a backup plan if Alvarez does not work out. Arsenal need to sell players to raise funds before they can go and spend that kind of money. There are players in the squad who could move on. Gabriel Jesus, for example, is reportedly a player the club may consider selling. That would free up wage space and bring in some transfer funds. But even then, Arsenal are going to need to be strategic. They cannot just spend wildly and hope it all works out. The squad already has a balance issue in terms of playing time. Adding another 2 or 3 big signings without offloading anyone makes that problem significantly worse. What does this mean for the title race right now? Before we get too lost in summer plans, it is worth remembering that Arsenal are right in the middle of a Premier League title race as we speak. They are fighting to end their long wait to be champions of England. They are also still in the Champions League. The injury situation at the club has been a real concern recently. At one point, Arsenal had up to 12 players dealing with injuries, including key names across the squad. Noni Madueke is among those who have had fitness issues. Managing a squad this big through the end of a season while also dealing with injuries is an incredible challenge, but Arteta has consistently shown that he knows how to get the best out of this group. The fact that Arsenal are still competing on multiple fronts despite a significant injury list is a testament to the depth they have built. And that depth, the same depth that is making life difficult for Nwaneri and Lewis Skelly, is also what keeps Arsenal competitive when the injuries hit. The question every Arsenal fan needs to be asking, so here it is, the big question, the one that is going to define how Arsenal operate over the next few years. Can Arteta keep bringing in elite players while also giving opportunities to the talented young players who have already committed their futures to the club? The honest answer is that it is almost impossible to do both at the same time when you are also trying to win trophies. You cannot build a title-winning squad with teenagers starting every week. But you also cannot keep signing older, more expensive players and watching your academy products leave on loan or eventually move on permanently. City found this out the hard way. They let Palmer go and he became a generational talent elsewhere. They let Delap go and he is now proving himself in the Premier League. Those decisions haunt them a little bit, even though they were arguably necessary at the time. Arsenal are going to face those same decisions very soon, with Nwaneri, with Lewis Skelly, with Dalman. The club needs to decide whether these players are genuinely part of the long-term plan or whether they are going to be allowed to develop somewhere else while Arsenal focus on winning now. There is no easy answer. Every choice has consequences. What should Arsenal prioritise this summer? Here is a thought. What if instead of spending £87 million on Kofane as a backup to an Alvarez deal that might not happen, Arsenal focused on something slightly different? What if they made sure Nwaneri gets real opportunities to establish himself in the first team? What if Lewis Skelly is given a clear pathway rather than sitting on the bench watching Hincapie play? What if the summer window is used not just to add more talent at the top, but to make sure the players already there have a genuine future at the club? That is a hard argument to make when you are competing for titles and trophies. Arteta is not paid to run a development program. He is paid to win. And to win, you need the best players available, but the clubs that sustain success over a long period are usually the ones who manage to blend experienced stars with emerging young talent. Barcelona did it for years with their academy products. Liverpool have done it brilliantly under Jurgen Klopp and now Arne Slot. Arsenal could do it too, but it requires a delicate balance. And right now, the scales are tipping quite heavily towards established signings rather than youth development. A final word here is what we know. Arsenal are a genuinely exciting football club right now. Arteta has built something special. The squad is deep, talented, and capable of competing at the very highest level. The interest in players like Alvarez and Kofane shows real ambition, but ambition without balance creates problems. The players who get left behind matter too. Nwaneri matters. Lewis Skelly matters. Darman will matter. These are Arsenal players. They deserve a genuine chance to prove themselves. The summer transfer window is always a time of excitement and speculation, but before we celebrate the next big signing, it is worth asking a simple question. Who is paying the price for it? Because someone always is. And in this case, it might just be the next generation of Arsenal talent. The young players who signed new deals believing they were part of the project. The ones who dreamed of wearing the red and white not as a squad player or a loanee, but as a genuine starter. They deserve better than that. And Arteta is smart enough to know it. The question is whether the lure of the next big signing will win out over the quiet, less glamorous work of developing what you already have. For Arsenal fans everywhere, that is the real story of this summer. Not just who comes in, but who gets left behind. Stay with it. The next few months are going to be fascinating.